Good to see you on here.
Yes, that's the
So,
first one.
so living room chat
Yeah, through the window.
through the window.
Woo!
Ooh,
Or
ooh.
through space-time dimension.
Space-time dimension. It feels like a complete time warp for me, I have to say.
What, when you just talk to me or just in general in life?
That's true. Yeah, no, in general, but all of it's a bit like that. It's been, some people saying they've got loads of time to do things, and it's been the other way around, I think, really for me. Just it feels like there's not enough time to do things, and there's lots happening, and all new and exciting and good, but just a lot happening. It's like I feel like my days are getting shorter, not longer. How about for you?
Yeah, no, I think it's been interesting. Like, if I'm meeting people now, I feel like there is that kind of work time happening. So when I was meeting up with Sabia and yourself, I felt like when I was talking to you, like everything else was starting to go into like the mists and all blurry and fuzzy, and then you were coming into kind of sharp focus and relief, and I was just like being sucked into the energy of it all. I was like, what the hell's going on here?
I know you don't realize how incubated you've been at all, and then how kind of like yes, that means your focus is completely going into where you are and what you're doing, and your energy isn't being dissipated in any other way with the connections. But in the same breath, when you're kind of coming together with somebody, even with the social distancing and everything, it's like suddenly you're actually able to have conversations and move into them, and yeah, and the time just seems to disappear, and yeah, goes into a different dimension altogether. It's very interesting. Or what is time? Good question.
Oh, yeah. So I guess we better explain
Mm.
a little bit about our respective tantra journeys then, and
Mm.
explain a little bit about what it is, or maybe not. Maybe we're just having this conversation.
Fashion. Yeah, but I guess it's like what led us. Well, it's interesting what led us into it from both of us being businesswomen.
Yeah.
I suppose that's kind of an interesting sort of starting point. Both of us being businesswomen, and what pulled us into the journey of tantra. Because that was really a little bit about the conversation we were having the other day. That what is it being a role of a woman in business, and why does that kind of seem to leave us exhausted? And we were talking about, it doesn't mean women aren't successful, but why do we kind of feel exhausted? And I think that's actually one of the things that kind of led me into tantra, because I felt like um, certainly when I started in business in Scotland, it was very much a man's world. It was still very patriarchal. A woman in business was kind of seen more like a secretary than a fellow colleague at management level. And then I think, without even realizing it, as women, we just took our role models of how to behave to stand up for ourselves in the business environment. It kind of gave you one or two places to go, either, using your sexuality for promotion and attention, or stepping into a kind of warrior like mask that was more like competing and being one of the lads or one of the men and competing with them a little bit. I know for me, that's what I kind of did. I got a lot of sexual harassment in my younger days in the workplace, sadly, and it was
And you
kind
still do, but I don't get any. I mean, it's not like I'm complaining, but a little bit of attention would be nice. You got the opposite.
of yeah. No, I had the opposite. It's funny though, because at the time, like unless it was actually majorly like a real harassment coming on, like trying to come into bed with you and you're not wanting to do that, and then being threatened with your work. The other side of it you didn't really notice in some ways, because it was kind of the norm. It was like, just be one of the tomboys. When you were growing up, were you a tomboy or were you a girly girl?
Tomboy,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, totally. Me too. So it's like, okay, so I just need to move into the role of tomboy, and act like the tomboy and be as tough and as, and as strong and as intelligent and as fast as, as the guys there. It's also interesting because Yeah, because in Scotland at that time when because I came up to study at university up here in Scotland, and then just stayed on work or a man kept me here one way or another. So, and and therefore it's like, you know, the culture as well, because it's like the drinking culture, and, you know, being able to drink as much as a man, and, you know, it was kind of all those things that were in there. You didn't really realize you're being really kind of tough and strong. And then, you know, running your own business, moving into running your own business takes a lot of masculine energy, because you have to be really focused and actually have to be quite ruthless with your time, you know, which is kind of contrary to the feminine, which is more like the nurturing energy on the whole. So you're kind of sort of stepping out of the feminine role into this kind of masculine role. And so that's kind of what drew me really to Tantra. I was feeling really depleted of my feminine. I didn't look unfeminine. Well, I hope I don't look unfeminine. I know I don't look unfeminine. So, okay, like yourself. So, but it wasn't, but I was aware that I was kind of in this tough role, and actually, you know, not being very soft, you know, not having that softness there.
And I think I mean, I've been doing your courses now and other courses for 2 years now. Coming up for July. July will be my second year at
something special.
So I've been doing every single course, and it's just amazing to see the people that come on the courses. And you know, most people that come on the courses, they're kind of excited and nervous and not sure what they're going to get. But after about 2 days, they just begin to realize how exhausted that they've been. They realize that because we're working at such a deep level of relaxation, that, you know, they've just been carrying so much baggage and everything. And I remember when I came away from my first course with you, the 4-day course, I just practically slept for 6 weeks. I mean, I got up, did my work and everything, but then just slept or pottered, slept or pottered. I just couldn't do anything else. I just knew I had to catch up on maybe 20, 30 years of sleeping, sleep deprivation, stress, you know, just living on empty and working on empty for so long, you don't even notice it.
I know, but it's also really interesting, because you kind of, because having now set a business up in this, and, you know, as you say, running courses in this, and it's like, and the last 2 years have been interesting, because I've been traveling around teaching for my parents' school as well as for our own school here, the one that we've created. But it's been a lot of traveling, and I haven't really stopped, you know, and I thought, great, lockdown. I can chill a little bit. But oh, no. It's time to launch things online. So what I was trying to mean from that was, it's kind of interesting, because it's like you have to keep reminding yourself to step back and take that time for yourself, because it's so easy, you know, to get caught in the doing, you know, and then you're still back into the doing. So you find that space, and you realize that you need to relax, that you really need to slow down, you need to create that space and that time, and then before you know it, it's kind of really interesting. You can get caught so easily back into the doing, and, you know, juggling that. It is really a bit of a time warp. You know, how do you manage this time? Obviously, in Tantra, we kind of laugh and say that, you know, time doesn't really exist, past, present, and future all happening at the same time. And it's just this humanness that we have, this illusion of this linear concept of time. But it makes it very interesting, because the hooks into being in it are very, very strong. You know, no matter how much. Yeah, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah. And what I find when I'm working with clients in marketing is that it's very difficult, particularly for people to be able to find their voice, and that is because of the fact that, you know, people struggle with what is their identity out there in the public space, because guys have dominated the public space for such a long time. You know, when you enter that public space and you're doing business and you are making things happen and you're forging ahead, you know, the only model that we have to kind of role model is often the guy's way of doing things. But the more and more women that are working in this space, the more we're seeing that we actually work really, really differently to guys. And when it comes to online and being able to market your business, it's still a challenge to find the right way to come across and just not be all kind of achievey and successy, like the guys like to be able to aspire to, but whereas women tend to respond more to the kind of connection and communication type of messages as well.
Yeah, I mean, this came up when we were chatting the other day, didn't it? Because we were just sort of saying exploring names for things, and yeah, the idea of achieving and being successful. And I was cringing. I was actually cringing inside myself because because it's like, why do we need to succeed, and what does success mean? And I don't mean that like, oh, what does success mean? I need to map it out. It's like, why are we even talking about being successful? Why can't we just be who we are, doing what we do? And why does that have to be success? And then why are we having to achieve? Why do we have to strive to something in that sort of sense? Don't get me wrong, there's a journey of moving forward. But the feminine is more kind of like, being in the moment. And the feminine is really creative. It's a creative life force, energy. And to be able to be creative, you're able to be able to be. So if you're constantly in the doing, which is like a very masculine energy, that's we need to execute, we need to plan, we have this deadline, we need to get all this in. And we need to achieve, it needs to be successful, we're competing with this, then that's very exhausting. It's kind of like it's like a steamroller that's going on forward, and there's no space or time for anything else. And yet the real creativity comes in the being, and anyone that's spent any time doing a little bit of mindfulness or meditation or anything artistic where you're contemplating, you're very much in a being process. And the minute you eliminate being, then the lack of creativity, there's a lack of creativity. And that ties into having an authentic voice, I think, for women in business. But it also ties into, how we manage the concept of time. And I know when I was doing all of my leadership stuff and working with chief execs and executive directors, and they're all like, I don't have enough time, and everyone's thinking I don't have enough time. And then you're kind of looking at how they plan things, and there's no time for creativity, there's no time for contemplation, there's no time for consideration. Everything is on deadlines, and therefore all that happens is people feel stressed because they're moving forward to these deadlines. They're not actually looking at what the real solutions can be, because you need time and space to contemplate for solutions. And therefore a lot of stuff is just being fixed, and also with a lot of errors, and then it induces a lot of errors, and then that induces even more stress. And one of the things I used to say when I was doing that was like, take a whole day. You have one day in your week that you're not planning in your diary, because you will use it up anyway, because it'll be all the other things that got shifted because of your deadlines that will be in that one day that you've kept free, because you're trying to put too much in. So, and that's a very, that kind of striving to achieve is a different way of being to being and creating. And in actual fact, the more you take the time for being and creating, the more you can manage the time more effectively, and the more you actually come up with solutions that work.
And that's very much like sex, isn't it?
It is. We were just talking about that too, yes.
I mean, the idea is that, guys are not people in general are not that educated and informed on sex, because the main ambition is to drive towards orgasm. We must get to orgasm, so let's achieve success. The objective is orgasm. We will get there, come hell or high water. And so that means that, that's a really bad experience for both parties. Even if you have achieved your objective, there's been a lot of missed opportunities along the way, I would say.
Well, yeah, you've completely missed out on the true beauty of things, and it's always, again, it's striving to get to the end goal. It's like, you hear this phrase a lot all the time, but, it's the journey that counts. But life, you've got one life to live. So if you're constantly striving to get to an end result, you're not actually living your life. You're living an illusion of your life that's got to get to that end point, because then you'll be happy, because then you've achieved, rather than being in the moment of the journey and allowing that to be an exploration, and allowing that to take you into things that might be amazing, without having, amazing opportunities. And you're right, it's totally like sex. I mean, we were just laughing, my partner and I the other day, because I was just saying, I actually need some space because I've got a lot on at the moment, just in delivery of courses and being on courses. And so I've just looked at my week and I think I've got one day that's not got huge chunks in it. And we were laughing and I said, you're just going to have to let me for a week, just create some space, we want love making in there. And he was laughing because as a woman, actually, yes, if we're thinking about what we've got to do, we're having to focus on what we've got to do, then we actually aren't in a space for making love, And if we go into the whole journey of the courtship thing and everything as well, for a woman, it's actually, you need to be taken out of your mind into a space of relaxation. And then when you can be in a space of like no-mindedness, really a little bit, then the body starts to relax and the body starts to surrender. And that whole journey of foreplay is the opening. If you think of the rosebud or the flower, all the petals are kind of there and it's looking beautiful, but the sun needs to shine and gently, the flower opens up and embraces the warmth, and then she's fully open. And for most women, they're never ever getting to that stage with their lovemaking because, as you say, there's this, from men, there's this race to get to their orgasm for most men. And then for most women, they're hurrying up to try and make sure they get their orgasm with the man. And sadly, for most women, they're not even orgasming, or if they are, it's just very simple. It's a very, one of the basic orgasms. And women have been given the gift with their body to experience over 7 different orgasms, if not more. Or if not more, you can add in a few other ones, including birthing. But, so, women have this amazing ability energetically, but if they're restricted with pressure and stress, they never achieve that. And the orgasm is creative energy, as we know. So it's the orgasm is the release of creative energy. And so if you're not able to actually fulfill that, you're not living your full potential as a being, as an energetic being. You have all this amazing potential, creative potential, and you're not being allowed to open that up. And it's very sad. I mean, I definitely know for me, you think you're being a woman in business, but when you're really challenged on it and you really have introspection with yourself, are you really being a woman in business? Are you really being in that space? And do we know even how to create it for ourselves or ask others to create it with us, to enable it? Because we're talking about this yang energy when we were talking again in the marketing the other day. The yang energy is the direction and the focus. It's kind of the short call to action. And the feminine part of it is all the why and how and the feeling and the emotional aspect of it.
The engagement and the connection.
Yeah.
So it's like any good marketing message. You've got buy my course or come and buy my product or whatever. And then all the kind of soft, that's the directed yang aspect of the message. And then the softer parts of the message are, here's a case study, here's an illustration of people who've had some success on it, here's all the benefits that you're going to have and things like that.
Yeah, this is what it will feel like this is what it will feel like, or
you're going to get, this is what you're going to look like as a result of having gone through this process of purchasing, and then you reiterate that kind of direction again. And that is part of the language of marketing, which is like as old as the hills, but it's still as relevant today online as it could ever be.
Well, yeah, and I think that's also like kind of takes us, if women are in this yang energy and this masculine energy, then when they're speaking what they believe they should be speaking to be seen as an expert, because that's kind of very masculine. It's a hierarchical, conscious intellect. And in actual fact, if a woman is speaking from her true voice, then it's a lot more juicy. She's more juicy. It's like there's the kind of in the feminine, in the Shaktiness, there isn't really a right or wrong in that, because the energy of the feminine can be chaotic, it can be pleasure, joy, it can be ecstatic, it can be intense and ferocious. But it's actually having that, that true voice of the moment of what you're in as a woman, and not being afraid to speak with that. We were laughing, I think, because we were talking about, I used to have a course called Flirting for Success, which is just networking. How do you network? And for me, flirting was just charisma. How are people charismatic? Why do people like people, and why do they find it easy to engage with them and talk with them? And that to me is what flirting is. And oh my goodness me, did we have a hoo-ha, and was in all the newspapers and radio stations at the time because I was promoting sexuality in the workplace. Coming from somebody that had experienced sexual harassment in the workplace, it was quite funny. We get really caught up. So it's like there are taboos that we don't actually address. And then there's things that are very innocent, that are our natural being and our natural juiciness, and we're not even allowed to express that. So we kind of constantly suppressing we're constantly kind of suppressing the element of the feminine, or the element of the, I'm not talking about this in a feministic way, but in society, for it to work, there are two polarities. There is a masculine energy and a feminine energy. It's in everything. It's in the sun and the moon. It's in pain and pleasure. It's in all things, electricity and all energies. We have these two polarities, and it's not that one is better than the other. Far from it. And it's not that either of them are equal. Far from it. But they're both as important. And it creates the energy, the elasticity, the pull, the excitement, the juiciness of both. But they need to be in this equal action of each other. Yeah, and if we start being one or the other, if we start being more masculine, we fail to bring that feminine to the place, and we lose that creativity. And if the men fail to have the yangness and bring that masculinity in, then they're not creating the space for the feminine to actually blossom. So we actually need both.
Yeah, and the worst thing is as well is that if we become too yang, then we polarize our men. Mm-hmm. Men become too kind of floppy, and they're not interesting anymore. Yeah. And we lose appetite, basically.
Yeah. Well, both, or we're competing. So lots of we were talking the other day. A lot of women, strong women in business, are like, oh, why do I fail so much in relationships, or why is it so difficult for me? And it's like, well, if you're a very strong woman, you're more yang than most men in modern day times. So, you're dominating the men. So they're either fearful to approach you, or you don't even notice them because they're not yang enough to show up on your radar.
This is why I never get harassed, bloody hell.
That's why they get harassed. And then the smaller percentage of the men are yang in maybe more of a competitive way, not in a balance, not in the male balancedness that we're looking for in a spiritual aspect. And then we're competing with them. We don't even realize, because we're so yang, we're then competing with them and challenging them and competing with them. And a man doesn't want to be with a woman that's challenging him in that way. Yes, challenging him to grow, but not locking heads as another male competitor in the room. And we don't realize that we're doing that. And then women, so women are falling in. So they're either polarizing men more into their yang, but more aggressive in a competition, or they're demasculating the man and pushing him more in his feminine if he's softer than them. So that's like a lot of the issues with the strong women in business that then causes problems in other areas. So it's interesting. It's being able to find that power, but in your feminine, because a very strong woman who's powerful in her feminine, men won't mess with her, not in a negative way, but they will respect her. But we need to drop this artificial armor and mask of the masculine that we've acquired in the process of doing. I'm not saying all women have. Some women have been very successful to find that feminine, but I think most of us, without realizing it, have kind of put this mask on that we don't realize, the war paint and the armor.
Yeah, I guess the answer is just to focus on the wonderfulness of everything that's happening and everything that is beautiful, and then expand from there, as opposed to try and reach to be able to find something that will never be findable.
I think it's just being in the moment, and I think the biggest thing for me is appreciating what you actually have. Like I was saying, yes, there's a lot going on at the moment. We're launching courses online that we've never done before. Suddenly I'm having to do my courses online, and instead of being away on a retreat where you're just doing it, you're having to mix everything into one space. And it's like, okay, well, appreciate what's happening. Okay, you're just here in this moment, and appreciate that. Are you happy, even if it's a bit tense? Yes, I'm happy. It's
but you also have to have a good structure behind what you're doing. So we worked together to make sure that your launch of your last course was a success, and that was a completely different way of working than you'd normally do. So in the past, you would normally just be posting up from time to time in the different places and things like that. But when we were working together, we had a completely different kind of strategy, a line of attack there. How would you describe what was different, and then what was the impact? Because you were quite shocked at the numbers that came on board.
Yeah, I think the amount of stuff that you have to do is quite, I'm just going to be honest and say hands up, the amount of stuff that you have to do to get everything up online to start with is huge and can feel very overwhelming. And when you look at a whole plan of having to launch a course and you allow so much time when really you actually probably need so much time, but you haven't got there. We didn't even do half of what we were meant to obviously do in the plan that was there. So because the skills that you're learning, it's getting the materials right, it's the amount of stuff that actually needs to happen. So I found it very intense, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Because with me, I'm comfortable chatting away online and having a chat with people online, but I really don't enjoy technology, and I really don't enjoy having to be on a computer, to do things like all the background stuff that you have to do. I'd rather be outdoors and doing spiritual practice, or whatever, rather than online. But yeah, so it was interesting. I mean, we were lucky. We had I think that the main thing for us is that we were very lucky because we had an intuition to service our existing clients online instantaneously, and not through selling something. So we put on that the free daily yoga, and that really genuinely came from a place of wanting to support the people that were already with us in a time of crisis and a difficulty where everyone was really uncertain on what the hell on earth was going on. If you remember the first week or so when lockdown happened, it was quite intimidating for a lot of people. And so obviously a spiritual practice is supporting people in doing that. And that was, without even realizing it, that was a God save that set us up, for the journey, because we had an amazing group of people come on board. I think 500 joined the group straight off. And we had lots of people actively following a daily practice with us. And then as the lockdown was progressing, we're like, well, we need to do something. We can't sit here and not have any money coming in. And then, we were asking for your help in putting all that together. So yes, launching the first course, and we were surprised. We had a really good number of people sign up. 24 people signed up to our first course, and we only spent a week and a half promoting the course, which was not very much time.
Yeah, and the good thing is, for me, is that when people are actually purchasing anything from an organization, from a marketing perspective, we don't just look at that one purchase. We look at the lifetime value of that customer that's just been created. So, for example, if people are paying an average of like £100, for example, for a course, but they're going to be paying for another 5 or 6 courses over the next 3 years, and each one is an average, 100 quid, then actually you can calculate that you have actually made, £1,000 per person that walked in and purchased that course on the first day. Because you when you do the calculations, you anticipate, okay, maybe 80% of people will go on to the next course, and maybe 80% of those will go on to the course after that. So you can always have a kind of a lifetime value of each customer, as opposed to just looking at that one-off purchase. So when people are working with marketers, they're like, I just want to make sales. And I'm like, no, we're not here to make sales. We're here to make customers.
Well, yeah, well, I suppose what we would turn around and say is building a relationship. You're wanting to have a relationship. You want the people to love what you're doing and then want to carry on a journey with you. For me, that's offline, online. It's like, for me, I love the teachings that we teach, and I found them the most profound out of all the journeys I've done of personal development and leadership and all the different aspects that I've done, and traveling in the world of spirituality as well. So my passion is to share that anyway, and it's a journey. It is a lifetime journey. Your opening of yourself as a being, and your evolution as a human being, and developing and growing and finding your truth is a lifetime journey.
Yeah.
So yes, I think building the relationship is absolutely key. I think what was nervous for us is one of the biggest things, not nervous, but the one thing you're unsure of the most is how do you position things with price, because what the value is offline. And I think in the middle of the crisis, you had two things going on. There was plenty of cash flowing around for some people. They just had lots of time to be able to do it and use the cash. Other people were freaking out, going, oh, goodness me, how long is the lockdown going to be? My livelihood is just shut down. I haven't got any money coming in. I'm not on a furlough. I haven't got an income. I don't know what's going to happen. And so we knew we had people falling into categories, and it's like, and also online yoga. With us, we're quite niche. We're Tantra yoga. It's not yoga. And it doesn't appeal to everybody because it's a bit more hard work. You've got to.
It's not physically hard work. I mean, you're working with energies basically. You're expanding your awareness and sensitivities and energy. So even though it's not an energetic yoga, as in you're going to be sweating at the end of it. No, but you're going to be holding those poses and feeling the way that your body is changing by the fact that you're tapping into different sensations as well.
Well, it's just that for most people, their yoga is a fluid movement of something, and it's not challenging their levels of concentration, or it's not challenging their levels to physically hold the postures. And it requires a bit more discipline because of that. If you want to feel the effects in our yoga, which are very powerful, as we're seeing from all the group, it was very interesting to see the group of people that were following us for the free daily live sessions, which are just practice sessions. There's no teachings in there. It's just the actual practice sessions. They were already beginning to experience very powerful energetic changes. And now we've got the group doing the online courses, and they're going through really big transformations. And like, my goodness me, I've done loads of healing work and energy work with lots of other people, and I've never felt these differences in my body and my being. So yes, but it requires a bit of discipline, and people are kind of normally impatient. They want to take the pill and have the result instantaneously rather than, kind of put the practice in. And I think people kind of don't understand the difference really with the Tantra energetic yoga compared to the normal yoga. So it's kind of, So it's niche marketing. That, I guess, is also something else that was interesting to, how do you actually find the people for that?
Yeah, it's an educational process for most people, understanding what the difference is between normal yoga and then the esoteric yoga.
Esoteric yoga, indeed.
Cool. So we've run to the end. We're way beyond time already.
Are we? My God.
We're massively beyond over our time, gone past our welcome space.
So, all right. Well, in that case, we'll slow down, and it's so easy to do if we start talking about all the different elements.
I know. So, what are you doing this week, for example? Let us know what does this week or this month look like for you?
Well, this month is carrying on. We have our module 2. Everyone who came on the module 1 course has booked the full 4 modules, so we've got until the end of August with this lot, and then we're launching another series starting from the beginning of the online Tantra Yoga. So if anyone's interested in joining us for that, there is that aspect of it. And then hopefully we'll get some live courses going, which would be amazing to actually be out and about and doing the live massage. Say again?
You mean in person, not live as in like...
Yes, live as in person, yes. Well, it's lovely when you're doing the massage and it's live and you're with a group, and the energy is just amazing to do that. We're very keen to get out live again. And I'm also doing my own next level of my spiritual teachings, as in me being a student online with my senior school. So that's kind of very fulfilling. So yes, I guess expanding the online aspect without a doubt, and keeping that there as a very critical part of the business now. And I think the other thing with times being very uncertain is just knowing that if you have the online, you kind of have a backbone. No matter what's going to go on in the world around you, there's a kind of backbone there. So I think that's kind of critical. But yeah, and then we'll see what happens. So just gently building it up and learning. That the online is a learning journey. And what about you, Miss Witch?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've just been crazy busy since the beginning. At the beginning, we had a couple of cancellations from companies that had to shut down. They were going to be going ahead and upgrading their website, but then everybody started paying for loads and loads of training, because this was a moment for actually doing that stuff that they've always meant to do, but they never actually got around to it. So there's been loads and loads of training. And then within a short space of time, there was a whole bunch of people who'd got some extra money from the government, and we're like, okay, we need the website upgraded massively, because we realized that we've just got this brochure online, hardly anybody visits it, it's not doing anything. If we want to actually upgrade it, update it, we have to go through the web designer, and that's just like costs money every time to put a blog together. So they're wanting those websites which are now you can actually make purchases from really easily, and you can update really easily. So we've been putting loads and loads of those kinds of ones together because most businesses basically woke up at the beginning of lockdown and said, okay, we're not in business unless we're online, literally.
Oh, that's true. I mean, if we wouldn't have done this, we'd be in a detrimental place. So I'm really glad that we had you in the background and had the opportunity to step up. And luckily, our business was in a place where we had enough people interested that were willing to do an online in that situation. So now it's just growing it. Yeah.
And so I just finished the delivering the whole 90-day business sprint, which was covering everything that a business would need to actually get their online strategies together, from branding to email marketing to what does your website need to be able to do. Obviously, the Facebook and the Facebook ads and the Twitter and the LinkedIn and the Pinterest and stuff. Because I've already been working with Facebook and Instagram for over a year, but now I've started working with Pinterest to deliver training for them as well. So that's been really fun. So now all of that is going to be integrated into a kind of self-serve experience where people can just go onto the site and then go through all the different modules and then do the quizzes to check that they've actually passed them, but making sure that they've got everything that they need to build their sales machine online.
I mean, that for me, that's always been the most important thing. I think you have to do something where you're working your way through it and creating as you go. If you just go to the course and then go home, you're like, Whereas if you're working on a journey, it's very, very powerful. It's the same as how the yoga works. It's baby steps. You're learning your simple steps first, then you move to the more interesting and exciting energy work as it gets more and more powerful, but you've got to build up and do everything progressively. So yeah, you've got a busy time ahead as well.
Oh well, as usual. It's it's good fun to do though. It's all very creative as far as I'm concerned. So I'm in my happy zone.
Yeah, we're getting there. Now we're getting the systems in place. That will free me up to be much more creative. And luckily I have good yang energy by my side, as in a good partner to support me that way.
That's the thing. Once you've got the structure and the systems in place, then it allows you to be super hyper creative, which allows us to be in our female zone, in our yin zone.
Exactly. Well, I think we're meant to sign off there. Is it time to bail out?
All right, gorgeous.
All right, enjoy. You too, and a cup of tea waiting. Another one coming.
Cheers, Angel.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.